Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Authentically Empowered Living. I am so happy to have you here, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Today, I'm diving into a topic that I think all of us have had to navigate at one point or another, but is never comfortable, and that is navigating difficult conversations with the people that we love the most. So, I'm coming to you with this topic because it has shown up in my life recently, and then I was reminded of how important this is and how multi-dimensional this situation can be when we're really trying to grow within ourselves. We're trying to become more aware, more conscious of who we are in this human experience. We're trying to honor our spiritual experience here on earth, but at the same time, we're maybe in a family or a relationship or a friend group where there's some things that are coming up that are uncomfortable, and it can be in our human nature, our instinct to kind of like shove that under the rug, ignore it, pretend like it didn't happen, try to move forward without really talking about it. But that's not healthy. And I think that we're all aware that when we do that, there's a consequence, whether we want to realize it, recognize it, honor it, or not. So, without further ado, let's jump into navigating difficult conversations with the people that we love the most. So, I told you that this is a topic that has come up for me recently, and that's why I'm bringing it to you. I really, with this channel, it's my goal and my intention to always bring you topics that I have personal experience with, topics that I feel like I have basically enough information, enough insight, enough knowledge to really share with you and benefit you in some way. And so I'm not claiming to have all the answers, that's for sure, but I have had to navigate difficult conversations with people that I love lately, and I've been kind of taking note for myself around how that's feeling, what's working, what's not working, what has been beneficial for me and the highest good of all, and what hasn't. And so that's basically what I want to share with you today is some tips and tricks, pointers and guidance on how we can navigate this a little bit easier and look at it from a greater, wider, higher perspective. And no matter what kind of relationship or situation you're in where maybe you're having to navigate some difficult conversations, I truly feel that in the workplace, it's not easy, right? It's not easy to have a difficult conversation with a boss, with a coworker, to really voice your opinion or stand in your power, stand in your truth with those people. But at the end of the day, you don't have to go home and live with those people. So it's a little bit easier. And my point with that is the closer it is to home, the closer it is to someone that you really love, maybe your immediate family or your romantic partner, even a friend, if that's the case for you. Those conversations are the ones that seem to feel really difficult and hold a lot of weight with them. But at the end of the day, my biggest number one tip for anyone that's trying to, navigate a situation where something's happening and maybe you don't agree with it, or something is, not in alignment with your truth, who you are as a person, but you're just putting up with it. It all starts with when we stop avoiding the conversation. So until we truly realize and recognize and honor the fact that, you know what, I have to bring this up, I have to communicate how I'm feeling, I have to communicate where I'm at, until we really put that into motion, we're going to be feeling a lot. We're going to be holding all of this within us, and it's going to start bottling up, whether it be our feelings, or if you're angry, you're going to start feeling resentful if you're not voicing what's happening and why you're feeling the way that you do. If you just continue to hold that in, then the longer that it builds up, the more pressure that builds up, and you begin to feel resentful. And at one point, you could explode like a volcano when it has so much pressure. And then everything's coming up, and you're really unable to stop it at that point, because it's like all of this pressure is building up, building up, building up. When it reaches a point where it can't stay in any longer, it's going to explode all over everyone and everything in its path. And that's going to be a lot more ugly than just, sitting down and saying, we have to talk about this. So you can also think about it as like a snowball. If one thing is upsetting you, another thing is, not necessarily in alignment with where you want to be. And the longer that it goes on, it kind of snowballs effects into an even bigger issue than what the original issue was. So my biggest advice is to just stop avoiding these difficult conversations, because the longer that you avoid them, it's actually going to get even more difficult. And I know that that seems hard to, honor and believe in the moment, because it feels like this is the last thing that I want to do is sit down and have this conversation. But if you ignore it, it's going to cause bigger issues, maybe even close up your throat chakra. So if you're not vocalizing how you feel, what is coming up for you, speaking your truth, you're going to keep swallowing it. And this is like a metaphor, but also a physical thing. Like if you want to say something, but you're not saying it and you're just kind of like holding it in, swallowing it, you're training yourself to close your throat chakra. You're living in a place of fear where you don't feel comfortable speaking up. So you're holding this back. You're closing or tightening or, pulling everything in. And this also is your throat chakra. So if you are unfamiliar with the chakras, we have 7 main chakras, and we have many more too, but our 7 main chakras, one of them is our throat, and this is all about speaking our truth. And if you're not speaking your truth, then you're closing your throat chakra. That's the easiest way to put it. And that's on an energetic level. But if you let this go on long enough, it's going to manifest into a physical level. So the way that energy works is first, your body or your energy is going to try to communicate to you through the energetic. So maybe a feeling, maybe an emotion, maybe an intuition. That's like the first place of communication. And if you're not listening to it, if you're not speaking your truth in this case, you feel like, what, I feel this, it's, festering within, but you keep pushing it down, then it has to manifest into a physical level, which is our physical 3D body, in order to get our attention. So I've actually seen for myself, when I'm not speaking my truth, I can break out on my jawline, on my neck. And this is like my body showing me a physical sign that something is wrong here. And that means that it's gone on long enough that you've probably ignored it. And now it's going to take a little bit longer for that physical issue to clear up, not just one time of speaking your truth. Although it could if it's a really, really big one, but we have to be aware of what we're putting our bodies through when we decide not to do something or to do something. If you feel an intuition, if you feel that you need to say something, then you need to follow that. You need to follow your body's nudges, your body's guidance. And the more that you practice it, the easier that it will get. But I'm mentioning all of this just to say that it's not just something that's going to disappear. Eventually, whether it be showing up physically on your body or bottling up and exploding or snowballing into an even bigger issue, if you don't have these difficult conversations, if you keep avoiding them, then it's going to get bigger in some way, whatever way that may be for you. And the good news is, for me, I'm always looking at it on a spiritual level. What is my lesson? And that's really what this comes down to. These conversations that we're needing to have right now with people that we love or people that we're working with, whatever the case may be for you, these conversations that feel uncomfortable really are our teacher. And it's our practice. Right now, it's a great time to practice. Even when it's uncomfy, this is what we're here to do. these conversations, these internal nudges, these internal feelings are shedding light on where we have what maybe a trauma or a trigger or an old pattern. It's giving us a prime opportunity to see these things clearly. So let me give you an example. Recently, I've needed to have some difficult conversations in my immediate family. And as those were bubbling up, I was feeling really uncomfortable about it, but then I was also feeling some fear. I was feeling some second guessing of myself. And one really good example is how when it came to my dad, I needed to have a difficult conversation with him, but I kept second guessing myself, asking myself internally, is this my place? Am I being bratty by having this really direct conversation with him? And the part that stuck out to me was this idea that it was going to make me a brat, or it was going to make me, basically I was looking at myself as a little kid again, saying, if I have this really direct conversation with my dad, I'm out of place, and he's going to think that I'm a brat. And that word is also very important. So pay attention to the words that are coming up for you as you're feeling uncomfortable about these conversations. What is it that's holding you back from having the conversation? How are you viewing yourself? How are you thinking that this conversation is going to go with your parent or your sibling or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle? And is that idea that you have in your head based on something that has happened in the past? That's really the whole message with this one. And that's what was happening for me. So when I was younger and I would see things happening in my family dynamic or in my childhood home, I was really direct about it. And I would say, Dad, why is this happening? Why are you doing this, or why aren't you doing that? And when you're 6, 7, 8 years old and you're telling your father this, it isn't really your place, right? Or at least that's how this society that we live in is kind of constructed. The parents are at the top, and then the kids are under them, and the kids listen to the parents, and whatever the parent says goes. So when I would say things really directly, as I saw them, I would point them out. My dad would say things like that, like, Nicole, this isn't your place, or who do you think you are, or stop being so, excuse me, stop being so bratty. And so that word, bratty, was being shown to me when I had to have an adult conversation with my dad, and it doesn't apply in this situation. It's no longer me as a child and him as my father figure. I'm an adult, he's an adult, and it does not make me a brat to have a direct conversation with my father. And so this is just one small example, but these tough conversations are going to shed light on where we are still playing small, where we have trauma that needs healing, where we have triggers, where we have old patterns. So use it as such. Use it as an opportunity to see more clearly what is still within me that needs healed, that needs integrated, that needs, worked on, so that I can move past this into the next highest version of myself. Because if I didn't identify that as an old pattern that is a limiting belief that is holding me back, I would have still been so nervous to have this conversation with my dad because I thought that it wasn't my place. But in this situation where I am now, it is very much my place. So we need to clear those old patterns. We need to clear those old traumas or triggers or limiting beliefs to move forward into the current timeline that we're in, to move forward into this next highest version of ourselves. So this is actually very exciting. These difficult conversations are going to shed a lot of light on where we need to pay a little bit of attention. And we may even be healing old patterns from our past lineage. So maybe it's not something necessarily that you're healing for yourself, but you may be healing something for your mom or your grandma or your great grandma and not even be aware of it. So let me try to give you an example of this. Let's see. So let's say that your family has been in a situation where your great grandma or your grandma was not treated fairly as a woman. Maybe she was physically abused, or if not physically, mentally, emotionally abused, or she was treated as property or an object. That's not taking place, I'm guessing, in your current family, in your current timeline, but that may have been taking place 2 or 3 generations back. And so now, as we're navigating our current timelines and we're moving through relationships and we're witnessing what's taking place now, maybe the conversations that you're having, even if they're not as extreme with you being viewed as property or as an object or being physically abused, simply you speaking up for yourself in a partnership and being a woman in your power, speaking your truth, operating at an equal level with your partner is healing, not only for you where you're at now, but also for the generations behind you, because maybe you're the first generation in your family that has been a woman in a relationship that has equal power, equal stance in that relationship. So you're paving the road, you could say, for that timeline in your current family. And this can be a lot to think about and a lot to understand. And the good news is you don't have to fully understand it. You don't even have to know all of the dots to connect this bigger picture. Maybe you're not aware of what your great grandma went through or what your grandma even went through. Maybe it's not something that you talk about in your family. That's okay, but you have to be aware that what you are doing now in your current relationships is a lot bigger than just you. Even if you don't know how it relates to your past generations, know that it does, and that what you are doing now, how you are living, how you are speaking up for yourself, has the power to heal past generations and set the tone for your future generations. And so when I think about that, I'm also just honoring myself and where I'm at, and I give myself a lot more credit for what I feel called to speak up for, because you never know why it's important for you to speak up for it now. You can't belittle it, basically, is what I'm saying. Even if you feel like, this is something I can just push under the rug, something I can put up with, something that I can deal with, give yourself more credit for where you're at and what you have the power to put into motion. And that kind of gives us the backstory on why navigating these difficult conversations with people we love especially is so important. But how? How do we navigate these difficult conversations? That's probably what you're thinking. And that's where I was just a week or so ago, thinking, okay, I know that this is so important for me to have these difficult conversations. I know that I can't just let this go, but how? How do I move forward and have this difficult conversation? I don't even know where to begin. And it really is all about coming back first to ourselves, pausing. Usually when there's a difficult conversation that needs to be had, there's a lot of emotion around it. You're feeling a lot. So before you just act, I invite you to pause and to come back to your breath. And this is what I did multiple times as I was moving through these stages of difficult conversations. I would literally give myself space away from everyone, whether it be in your room or out in nature, even in your car if you don't have any other place to just be alone. Sit with yourself, close your eyes if you feel safe to do so, and come back to your breath. Listen to your breath, feel your breath. And what that does is it really brings you back to this source that lives within you, this greater source that is controlling your breath, that is constantly nudging you to breathe in and breathe out. It's always there. And when you come back to that, at least for me, I instantly feel more grounded. I feel more embodied in my body. And after taking that pause, it gives me some perspective. It brings into perspective, okay, where am I at and what truly matters? And for me, depending on where you're at in your journey, if this speaks to you, then great. If not, that's okay too. But for me, When I bring myself into that pause and then put myself into this place of perspective, asking myself, what is it that truly matters to me? I remember why I'm here on earth in the first place. I'm here to have a human experience. I'm here to grow. I'm here to evolve my soul. I chose at a soul level these relationships. These are the soul contracts that I put into place for myself to learn from and to grow through. And when I remember that it's not about my dad or my mom or my brother or my aunt or my uncle. It's about the relationship and the contract that I have with them to grow myself and for me to also assist them in their growth. Now that's the second priority, is me assisting them in their growth. First, I need to focus on how can I grow in this current situation? How can I allow these uncomfortable conversations to expand my awareness? And that's a big one. Expanding our awareness is about not only putting this into perspective, but allowing this to be practice, allowing this to be a place where we're really in a mystery school. So after I took myself into those moments of pause, came back to my breath, gave myself some perspective, I would go back out with the intention of truly hearing what the other person has to say. Because a lot of the times when we're in a difficult conversation, we have our points, right? We have our bullet points of this is what I need to say, this is what I need to get across, and we're so focused on this that we're not hearing what that other person is truly saying to us. And above that, we're not feeling what that means. So instead of ignoring everything else except for your own list of points, really set the intention to listen and be present with the person that you're communicating with. What is your goal of this conversation? That is the points that I went into my difficult conversations with, versus having everything written out. You said this, she said this, you did this, that made me feel like this. Instead of having those points at the top of my mind, I switched it and put myself into a place of orienting myself with my goal. What is my goal? How am I going to learn and grow and evolve myself the most by being in this conversation? And it really, for me, came down to the goals of standing up for myself, speaking my truth, and bringing myself back to full awareness versus blind arguing. So I knew the situation, right? When you're in a situation where a difficult conversation needs to be had, you're really aware and clear on what the situation is. You've been living in it. Okay, you don't need to prepare yourself with all these points to win or pin the other person down. You don't have to beat the other person that you're communicating with. A conversation is more like a round table where you're both taking this time to hear each other, to feel each other, and to come out with a mutual agreement, a place where you both win. And so when you have that in mind, you can have your bigger overarching goals that actually guide you through the conversation. And for me, like I said, that was the goal of standing up for myself versus, not speaking, versus pushing everything under the rug and saying, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, I'm okay. Instead of playing that same old game, I set the goal for myself to speak up and stand up for myself. And that goes along with speaking my truth and not playing sides. So for me, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I'm going to give you this example in hopes that it helps. I have, since my childhood, been very much the middle person. I never want to take one side or the other because I've always wanted everyone to agree. I've wanted everyone to just get along. And so with that in mind, as a child, a lot of times I didn't know how I personally felt. I just knew how person A felt, person B felt, and I knew how I could communicate to both sides to get them to see something more similarly, even if it meant saying it to person B this way and saying it to person A another way. That's like something that I just naturally took on as a child. And that's not going to be everyone's situation, but look back at your childhood and see, what role did you take on in your family unit? How did you communicate, or how did you show up in relationships? Because that'll give you a pretty good idea of how you're still communicating now and what your patterns are now. So with that in mind for myself, I'm now setting the goal for myself when I go into these difficult conversations to speak up for myself, to be clear on what I feel, what I need, and then speak my truth from there. And then, of course, like I've mentioned, bringing myself back into full awareness versus blind arguing, versus just saying, this is what's right and that's what I need to make the outcome show. No, maybe I think that that's right now, but if I don't truly feel what the other person is saying, then I won't really know. So I hope that that helps. I'm just trying to give you guys some ways to ask yourself these questions, to look within yourself and see what is holding me back or what is limiting me during these difficult conversations. And when you bring this into a bigger awareness, a bigger perspective of, okay, I'm here to grow myself, I'm here to evolve myself, then it feels a lot less scary. Because I'm not going to lie, when these difficult conversations were coming up for me, I was feeling a lot of fear. I was feeling a lot of worry. I was feeling just a lot. And bringing myself back into a pause, back to my breath, reminding myself why I'm here in the first place, that I'm literally here on earth to learn and to grow, and that these people are fulfilling their soul contracts for me. They're not the monster, they're my teacher, they're my practice companion. These are my goals. I don't have to win this conversation. I simply have to be active and present in the conversation. It really, really helped me. And I know that I've already touched on it a little bit, but a lot of times we've been conditioned to always see things one way. So whether that be in your intimate initial family unit, maybe you always were on your dad's side, you were a daddy's girl, or maybe it was flipped, maybe you were always on your mom's side. When it comes to having difficult conversations as an adult, we have to look back at those childhood patterns. We have to make sure that we're not just playing out, acting out the same old conditioned ways of being, because chances are they're not serving you anymore. Ask yourself if that is still true. Is it still true that this is right and this is wrong? Ask yourself if anything has changed or evolved or provided you with greater clarity. Really, what I'm trying to push you and nudge you into is seeing the bigger picture of what is going on around you. It is not your job to fix everything, but it is your job to be active in the process. So for me, like I said, I grew up in a family unit where I felt like I could fix everything. I felt like I had the ability to assist both sides in seeing the middle ground. What I didn't realize was that that was not my job. And here's the bigger one, that by doing that, it was a disservice to the rest of the group. So this can be a hard pill to swallow, especially if you're in similar patterns as me. If you are good at fixing things, and if you have done that, played that role really well as a child, you may still be playing it and still feel like you're good at it. But I want to ask you, is that role that you're playing of fixing these relationships, these family dynamics or sibling dynamics or cousin dynamics or extended family dynamics, is that role of fixing everything serving anyone? First of all, is it serving you? It sounds to me like it's a lot of work. And it actually doesn't even just sound like it. I know that it's a lot of work because I've been there. I've done that. And sometimes I still catch myself doing that. But that's the thing. I'm catching myself in the act. And then I'm saying, no, Nicole, it is not your job to fix everything. When you fix everything for someone else and you try to avoid these difficult conversations and just, do little things to make everyone happy, to please everyone, and to get everyone in a happy state of being, you're taking out their opportunity to learn from the difficult conversation. You're taking out their opportunity to learn from the discomfort. If you're making everyone comfortable, then they're not going to learn the lessons, the experience that comes along with the discomfort. That's actually why they signed up to be in this situation with these other people. These are their soul contracts. And by you kind of acting like God or a little angel going around trying to fix everything for everyone, you're taking away their lessons. So see what you can observe now as an adult in this bigger picture when it comes to having difficult conversations with the people that you love. Once you remember and you acknowledge that it's not your job to fix everything, it kind of takes this weight off your shoulders, and you may feel uncomfortable still not knowing, okay, how do I interact in this unit, in this dynamic? And someone recently told me that focus 2/3 on yourself and 1/3 on everyone else. And I found that really comforting because it didn't mean that I can no longer try to help the others. It just means that I'm spending more of my energy, more of my intention and attention on my own growth, my own inner world, what I need. And then with a little bit of leftover energy that I have, I can still assist others where I can and where is appropriate. But you first have to be aware of your own feelings, your own needs, your own truth, and focus on communicating that clearly and having your boundaries in place. Like, it's not okay for your parent or your sibling to expect you to fix everything either. They may have grown comfortable with you playing that role in the family dynamics, but you have to then put up boundaries that say, no, I'm no longer playing this role. It's not my job to do so. And you have to be firm with those. You can't cave when someone comes to you feeling a lot, feeling emotional, kind of in a mess. You have to give them their power back to stand up for themselves, to speak up for themselves. And the greatest gift that you can give them is to truly stand up for yourself. Model the behavior that you are now implementing. When you start standing in your power, emanating the growth and the awareness that you have gained, and you communicate clearly for yourself, and you have these boundaries, that is going to be such a big impact on all of those around you, because they're going to notice. They're going to observe how you are showing up, and it's going to be different from how you've shown up in the past. And when they observe that, it's going to impact them whether you realize it or not. So without having to say anything, by just focusing on you, by being aware of where you're at in your process, and then standing in that, you're going to give them the keys, the codes, kind of the example that they need to do the same for themselves. So I hope that my tips, my tricks, my examples, my stories have been helpful for you. At the end of the day, I just want you to remember to take it easy on yourself. Difficult conversations never are fun. They never feel good. Even when you're in a place of growing from them and you're aware in them, it still takes practice, for one, to get more comfortable, to get more confident. And it also is something that doesn't necessarily feel good, but that doesn't mean that it's not good for us. And when you start stepping outside of your comfort zone more and more and having these difficult conversations and having a really clear intention with why you are doing so, you will notice the shifts in even other areas of your life. Because like I said, you have the power to impact not only yourself, but other layers of, whether it be your family unit, your community, your workplace. By you taking action to evolve and up-level yourself, you are going to set into motion a ripple effect on the people around you. So go easy on yourself. You've got this. I love you. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. If this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Maybe share it with someone else who may find it helpful. And I look forward to seeing you all back here very soon. Bye for now.